All right, let's get this thing started. Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the Niner Family Huddle podcast. It's been a while. I feel like it has at least, but we're back. We got plenty to talk about after this. All right, should we quickly talk about what I was just talking about?
Let's talk about it.
Shanahan is not at the combine now. He hasn't gone for a long time. I'm actually a little bummed he doesn't go, only because when he does go, Chris Sims usually interviews him, and I usually enjoy those interviews. And I think it's been like 5 years since they've done it. But he's not there. Sean McVay's not there. There's a couple coaches who don't go, and most coaches do go. And Grant Cohn has been making a point to ask all of the coaches that are there why they're there and why it's important for them to be there. And they've all basically said the same thing, that they value meeting the players face to face to gauge their character, their personality, and to get to know the guys on a more personal level. And they think they can only do that face to face. What do you guys think? Is it important for Kyle to be there? Do you not care? Do you care? What do you think?
Kyle just trusts his guys, man. He's got his guys. He sends them out. He trusts what they say. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. I think. I mean,
as long as they make the right draft picks, right?
As long as they make the right draft pick, which they haven't always. But McVay and the Rams have drafted pretty well, and sounds like he doesn't go either. So that's interesting. I don't know. I think it's kind of a nothing burger. What do you think, Steven?
I agree. I mean, I don't really care whether or not he goes. I would like to think that he knows better than us or than Grant Cohn, for that matter. Like what he needs to do to get his team together. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I feel like it's Grant's way of trying to be a troll. Asking that question, and fine, that's his thing. That's what he wants to do, right? That's what he likes to do. So let him do his thing, and he can get his reactions out of that or whatever he's going for.
Yeah, I will say I do think there is a human element and a personal element to meeting these young players that could be valuable. And all of their interviews are recorded, so Kyle can always watch what's going on in these interviews. But as you guys know, I mean, we're talking to each other on a screen right now. It's not the same as standing in the room together, talking, really looking eye to eye, shaking hands. It's different. So some coaches value that, others don't.
Yeah, but anybody that they're actually interested in, they're gonna meet with. Like Kyle is gonna meet in person. It's just gonna be later in private. Like I mean, I guess the only argument that I could see is somebody that wasn't on your radar, and then you met them at the combine, and you're like, wow, I really like that young man. Like how he carries himself. I suppose that could push it over the top for you. Like, well, I wasn't really thinking we were going to draft, this tight end, but man, I really liked him, and I feel like he could bring a lot to our team just in the locker room or whatever. That sounds great. Like if that perfect scenario lined up, but like, I feel like if there's whether it's position, whether it's people, like they're going to evaluate the players on tape. Like you said, they have the people that are out there at the combine to do their job, or like Chasen said. And so I feel like it's not like, well, he didn't go to the combine, so he's not going to ever meet the players. Like he's still going to have that chance. It's just, it feels like, an extra thing that he has obviously chosen to not participate in.
So he's said in the past one of the reasons why he doesn't like to go is because he spends his time watching film. I can't remember if he ever specified, is he watching the college players or is he still in like free agency mode since the free agency is coming up? I wonder if he's watching pro or college or just whatever he feels like. Who knows? John Lynch is going to speak tomorrow, so hopefully he'll have some nuggets.
Oh,
I that is the only thing. Like I said, reason why I want Kyle there is because Kyle will speak and he usually has interesting things to say, especially when he tries not to say anything interesting. That's usually when he does drop some golden nugs. You gonna say something, Jason?
no. I was just thinking because Cone's there, and if Kyle got interviewed, we probably would get either some nugs or we'd get some passive aggressiveness that will be fun to talk about regardless. So, yeah, I'm excited to hear Lynch speak tomorrow because I want to hear him talk about some of the coaching changes, including his son getting hired as I believe his official position is defensive quality control coach. And his son's name is Jake Lynch.
Jake Lynch. Okay, so he's the official like gets Robert Sala a coffee and a bagel in the morning guy.
Sounds
Make
like
sure the
it.
balls are inflated.
When you
Make sure the helmets are clean. Whatever.
when you said he was hired as, you were looking for his title. I was going to say assistant to the traveling secretary. That was George Costanza's job with
Assist,
the Yankees.
assistant regional manager.
Yeah, I. It's funny. Jason mentioned earlier like the nepotism. He's like it's a Niner thing, but the NFL is just full of nepotism. Um, it's everywhere. So who knows what this kid brings to the coaching staff? His dad's a Hall of Fame safety. I'm sure he knows football to some degree, but D'Amico Ryan started as a defensive quality control. That's kind of the bottom rung. So, but D'Amico Ryan's was an All Pro linebacker. So we'll see. Maybe he'll be. My prediction is Robert Sala gets hired in a year or two. Gus Bradley takes over. He does it for a couple years, assuming he's good. And who knows? Maybe young Lynch will be working his way up to a position coach by then, and maybe he'll be a D coordinator for the Niners in 8 to 10 years.
Well,
Yeah, no, it's unlikely.
the one thing that is interesting to me is I feel like there used to be rumors a lot that like John Lynch is going to leave to go to the media. If he's kind of
Mm-hmm.
planting his son here, I feel like that's somewhat of a sign that he's planning on sticking around for a little while longer. No?
I don't know. I think,
It could also just be that his son needed a job. So
yeah, it could be that. I
could be a
think
1 year thing.
if the Niners win the Super Bowl, I think John is gonna be like, okay, mission accomplished. Kyle's gonna be like, let's go win another Super Bowl. John's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be like, mission accomplished. Time to go back to TV and play
And
golf.
Amazon or
That's my
whoever.
guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good guess, but I've wondered about that too because I think it's pretty clear how much John loves
The
the
competitiveness.
competitive juices, and
Yeah.
he's openly talked about how you don't get that part in TV. So I don't know. I feel like yeah, winning the Super Bowl would be the big like mountain for him to climb or whatever. But it seems hard to go from that to back to TV.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
guys ever heard Lynch talk about like how he struggles to like control his emotions when he knows he's on TV at games?
Mm-hmm.
And he said in like his first year when like if the Niners threw a pick or whatever, he would like be all like emotional, but he was like, yeah, I got told early on I gotta, keep a stoic face. And he was talking about how difficult it is for him to not react.
And he's clearly still working on that, obviously, right? Because this past season, he got caught slamming his fist down on the table in a game. Like he's obviously super invested.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested to see what he has to say tomorrow. Were there any other coaching hires that intrigued you?
Two more that I'll note. The big one, I'll actually go with the smaller one, the obvious one. Clay Kubiak officially named offensive coordinator. And then kind of the big one I feel like that I've seen fans get upset about on Twitter is Mick Lombardi officially named the new quarterback coach, replacing Brian Greasy. So Brian Greasy let go. I would assume if he plans on continuing his coaching career, like teams will probably be chomping at the bit to get him. So that's kind of the one that's making headlines, and everyone's like, "What the heck's going on?" Greasy's done a great job with Purdy.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Because I don't. He wasn't fired. I
Mm-mm.
don't know what kind of did he sign a 2-year contract with the Niners and the contract is simply expired, or did he go to Kyle and say, "Man, I'm beat. This coaching thing is not for me. I think I'm gonna retire. Just go do something else."
I could have swore that earlier this offseason there were people that were interested in him
The
to
Jets.
Yeah.
to interview him. I don't know if it was for OC or if it was just for like, other opportunities, right? And either they were denied or he said, "No, I'm not going anywhere." Like
He
I
said no to the Jets
okay,
for a head coach interview.
okay. So that's what I'm thinking of then.
Wow.
So that either tells me that something has changed between now and then, or like you said, Ryan, maybe he just knew he was ready to be done coaching. So he said no to the Jets and he was just kind of waiting for this to play out.
There's speculation just in what I've read in articles that he might be returning to broadcasting. I don't know if there's any truth. We'll have to wait and see behind that. But he was working with ESPN in the broadcast booth doing college football and Monday Night Football.
Yeah, he was a part of that Monday Night Football booth that everyone hated. Yeah, he did it for like 1 year, maybe two, and they had like Booger down on the sideline, and
Booger.
he was just going crazy. And I can't remember who he was in the booth with, but it was a 3-man booth, and nobody liked it. I'll do a little speculation. He's from the University of Minnesota, or he went to Michigan. I wonder if he could get like an offensive coordinator job for Michigan. I mean, I've heard nothing, so I don't know. It's just like he just doesn't work for the 49ers anymore. Oh, okay. Doesn't sound like he was fired. If he was fired, they would say like he was fired.
I mean, I
Yeah.
know things can always change, but I've heard Kyle speak like glowingly about him in the past and how
Oh
lucky
yeah,
they
Same
are
with
to have him.
John.
the Shanahans love Greasy.
So
And
I can't imagine that they got rid of him. I mean, I would be
yeah.
surprised. I would think that it was
His call.
his
That's my
his
guess.
decision. Yeah.
And apparently he was a big reason why they drafted Purdy. He advocated to draft Purdy.
Stood on the table and said, "Do it."
Do it, mother effers.
I
Use
wonder
that
how often
seventh
in a
round
draft
pick.
room someone literally gets up on the table and is like, "God damn it, you better draft this player. I'm standing on this friggin' table."
Have you seen that movie, the Cleveland Browns? What's
Draft
it called?
day
Draft Day. Have you seen
with
it?
Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
No, did someone stand on the table?
I mean, there's I can't remember if someone actually stood on the table, but there's drama. It's pretty good. You guys should watch it. I don't know how realistic it is or not, but it's really good. Like all the drama, everyone's calling each other mother effing. GMs
I'm
are
sure
mother
that
effing
part's
each other.
pretty accurate.
They're
Is it based on a true story, or is it just a movie about the draft?
sort of. I mean, it's not, but you can tell they tried to frame it around like real-ish things, if that makes sense. And they reference real players. Like they talk about players. They talk about like I think Pete Carroll's referenced quite a bit because I think they made a trade with like the Seahawks. So like, it's a good movie. I would highly recommend it. It'll probably get you pumped for the draft too.
Yeah, maybe I'll check that out as we get closer to
It's
the
good.
draft.
What
Speaking of Pete Carroll,
what would be funny is if people are standing on the table and they're just like disregarded because like everybody
Like,
acts like
Probably.
it's this big dramatic thing and it's like we must get him. All right, anyways, so we're gonna get a
Kyle's
quarterback
like,
here, right?
They
sorry,
showed that
buddy,
in
it's
the
the third
movie.
round. I'm taking my running back.
It's like all these scouts have done all this work, and then the owner just struts in and is like, "I want a quarterback," and then like everything's just out the window.
That's from the Vivek Ranadive playbook.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Pete Carroll. On Grant Cohn's flight to Indianapolis, he filmed Pete Carroll, who was on his flight. He talked about how Pete was flying coach, but he walked up into first class where Seahawks GM John Schneider and their new head coach Mike McDonald were sitting, and he just like sat there and talked to them for like an hour. Just talk, and he kind of filmed a little bit of it, but man, I don't know what Pete Carroll's up there talking to him about for an hour.
So
It'd be kind of interesting.
Grant's
Seattle weather.
trying to get Pete in trouble for not paying for first class but riding in first class for an hour, huh? Man, that guy really is a troll. Look at him.
That's what it's all about. It's just the combine is just all about drama and the underwear Olympics, and that's it.
Well, I know it's not Niner related, but since you mentioned Pete Carroll, I was listening to the radio on my way home tonight, and there was some speculation, and I'm sure that's been elsewhere as well. But they were talking about Russell Wilson going to the Raiders to join up with Pete, and like in some ways, it's like, oh, it makes all the sense in the world. Raiders don't really have a quarterback. Pete Carroll could get a guy that he knows, whatever, right? On the other hand, I was like, isn't that why Russ left? Wasn't he like sick of playing for Pete? It's like
Yeah,
now we're just a few
Yeah,
years down the line, and there's speculation. Oh, they're going to reunite.
yeah.
they
People
love
keep
each other.
talking about that reunion. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I thought that. Anyways, that's
It's
kind
got
of
to be casuals or just lazy reporting.
yeah.
Both.
I was surprised because I hadn't really heard it discussed or flushed out or anything, and so when I was listening to it, they were saying how yeah, Russ is always going to be Mr. Positive. He'll find a way to spin it, and they know they can work together and whatever. And I'm just like, I thought that was like the main reason he wanted out.
Russell tried to get Pete and Schneider fired, and then they
Yeah,
traded him.
yeah.
It's like crazy to think about if we could go back in time 4 or 5 years and like what Russell Wilson was and how he was regarded to now today.
Man, that's why Aaron Rodgers better be careful. Like, you're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You stick around for a year or two too long, and all of a sudden it's like, man, he was great, but boy, what an ending to that career. Like, Travis Kelce, hang it up, buddy. You're cooked.
Yeah.
The thing about Russ, though, is there's so much money on the table for him. I wonder if he's still getting paid from the Broncos, so he's just like sticking it out because even though whoever he plays for is not paying him, the Broncos are still paying him like 20, 30, $40 million. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's just the love of the game.
He'd be a good backup to Brock.
That's what I said
Mm,
an episode or two ago. We were talking about it. I said, give me Russ. Why not? And Chasen, you even joked, he was like, in the media, he'd be like, well, it's a little bit of a quarterback competition
quarter-
going on here. And
he
everyone's just like,
would.
yeah, all right, they're paying Brock 55 a year, and they're paying you $55,000 a year, so it's not going to happen. That would be Russ, though. He would show
Yeah.
up with his own security, too. Did you ever hear that story about Russ? How he had like a maybe a celebrity or a charity. That's what I'm thinking about, like a charity golf or a softball thing. And
Yeah.
everybody that was there, he invited, and he showed up late with a bunch of his own security guards to his own like charity softball game or something like that.
Well, I know in
It's
Denver,
weird.
wasn't there reports that he like wanted his own, like
Office.
his own office, but I think he also wanted his own like trainers that he work with to like be brought on the staff or whatever and like work with him, and he didn't want to work with like the Broncos coaches or something like that.
I think he had his own office in Denver before Sean Payton got there. And when Sean got there, he was like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Kicked him out. It's my office now.
Yeah, he's like, my son will be the defensive special whatever coordinator. This is his office. You're done. All right. Anyway, um, Ben Barch got re-signed. Didn't play very much last year, but I thought he played well when he did. I think it's pretty obvious. We know Aaron Banks is going to be Gonzo in free agency. Do you think the Niners are thinking Ben Barch is going to be their starting left guard next year? Do you think he competes with Spencer Burford, or is he just a guy? He'll be a death piece, and maybe they'll go draft somebody, sign somebody.
I think he can compete. He's 26 years old, entering his prime. He's played well at times. The Niners clearly have made an effort to keep him around, so I think he could compete for that spot.
I think it's really just their way of trying to get some continuity because Feliciano also retired, right? So Banks is going to
Mm-hmm.
be gone. Feliciano retired, which I think everybody expected. So it's like, well, let's at least get somebody who's been in our system and knows the plays. And so, do I think that they re-signed him thinking, all right, we got the starting spot locked up? No, I don't think they did. I think that they said, hey, we like this guy. To Chasen's point, he does have some promise. He's still young. So maybe it works out where he becomes that. But I'm sure they're not thinking, okay, one of the guard spots is solved now. But I'm sure they're hoping that he could do it in a pinch and maybe he surprises them.
Yeah, I I hope they don't look at Ben Barch like, all right, we've got the offensive line dialed.
Yeah.
Time to move on. I mean, speaking of that, free agency's coming up. I was going to ask you guys about making a big swing or not. The big swing on the O line would be the center from Atlanta, probably Drew Dahlman.
Mm-hmm.
Someone pointed out it might have been Rob Guerrera on his podcast, I think earlier today or the day before, and he was saying that when the Niners signed Jimmy to his contract, that same offseason they went and got Weston Richburg.
Mm-hmm.
They paid a center. Could the same thing happen where they pay Brock and go get Drew Dahlman? Maybe. What do you guys think? Should the Niners take a big old swing in free agency? And if yes, who?
I'd say yes, and I'd say the Atlanta Falcons center. I mean, I'm not an expert on that position group, but based on the articles I've seen, he's the top guy. In Atlanta, a former Atlanta Falcons center's done well with the Niners previously. So yeah, I don't know a ton about his fit necessarily with the scheme, but he seems like the top dog. So yeah, I'd definitely be fine with that.
From what I understand, the scheme fit is perfect. He's run this scheme most of his career. Definitely recently, because the Falcons' O coordinator is from the Rams. He's a Sean McVay guy. So he's familiar with the scheme. He's top 10 in run and pass blocking, maybe even top 5 in one of those. He's 26. I think he's from California. His dad's like a principal at an elementary school somewhere in California. So there may be some ties to Cali.
Bring him in.
What do you think, Steven? Do you like Drew Dahlman or someone else?
I like the idea of Drew Dahlman. I don't know enough about him to be able to say like, oh, I think he's, gonna fix all the woes. But I mean, you guys know that I've been pounding the table for their first pick to be a D lineman, and I feel like O line is something to better address in mid rounds, late rounds with your development projects, and otherwise you sign vets if you can try to get either certified like starting players or guys with high upside. So in terms of like looking across the options, like I've seen some people talking about how they should go get that guy Zach Bond from the Eagles, make a play for him. Sorry, I mean maybe he is the next great linebacker, but I'm not sold. Like I feel like he's had one good year, and now everybody's like this reeks of what happens with so many guys. You play great during your contract year, you get big money, and then you go back to being middle of the road. And so, anyways, I just feel like any of the big ticket like free agents, I mostly want to stay away from. But an O lineman, I'd probably be okay with because I feel like a big ticket O lineman is as close to a sure thing as you're going to get.
I'm reading an article about Dahlman, and it has him listed. It just says he's one of the best run blocking centers in the NFL. I don't see the data to back that up, but I guess I'll take their word for it.
Yeah, how many pancake blocks did he have last year? I need to know.
But I mean, so if that's true, let's say that that's true. One of the best run blocking centers in the NFL, given his age, given the fact that you want to protect Purdy, right, and probably build some chemistry with the center quarterback, it would make a lot of sense. I hope that the Niners do that. I don't know that they always go the obvious route. It seems like a lot of times they zig when you expect them to zag when it comes to their signings. Like I remember being really surprised that they went and got Mooney when they got him. I was happy. I was really happy that they did. I wasn't expecting it. I was like, whoa, all right, Niners.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was definitely surprised when they got Hargrave. And at the time I was
very surprised.
Yeah, I was hopeful.
Shocked.
Obviously that didn't really pan out, but anyways, so I feel like they don't really do what is expected very often.
Mm-hmm.
And so that worries me a little bit because it seems like based on what I know about the free agent class and everything, like Dahlman seems like one of the best investments you could make in free agency.
So they're not going to do it.
That's what I'm worried about. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm,
So the question is, what do you expect them to do? Because that's what they won't do.
you know, I really don't know what to expect,
I
but
don't either. The Brock Purdy contract feels like a big wild card in the whole evaluation.
I feel like especially the idea of them trying to be a little more strict with their resources or whatever. I, I could see them doing something similar to last year, where they're just trying to sign like middle of the road depth piece guys, and they're not going for any big swings. I wouldn't be surprised. Or maybe they take some medium swings and they like try to get two medium swing guys instead of the big swing. Like I know a guy that's been talked about as a potential replacement for Dre Greenlaw. I know Ryan, you've talked about the Jets guy. Sounds like that'd be awesome. But the other guy that I've been hearing about is Nick Bolton from the Chiefs.
I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that too.
And
Mm-hmm.
if he's available for the same money or similar money to Greenlaw, that's not a bad backup plan.
No, I mean younger, not dealing with a ruptured Achilles.
It sounds like you can buy low on him a little bit too, because he kind of had a down year, or a couple, like 2 years ago he was hurt and last year didn't have his best season. So, you know, I I could see them doing something like that where they go for Nick Bolton and maybe like one of those wide receivers that we talked about, but not T
Darius
Higgins.
Slayton.
Yeah, Darius Slayton. Like go get three guys maybe like that, and you're like, hey, all right, these are all good players. I don't think any of
Mm-hmm.
them are going to be Pro Bowlers, but they're all good, solid players, and I don't think I'd be too upset if that's where they ended up. But I don't know what to expect, honestly.
No, I feel like that's one of the big things missing from last season was good role players. They had the superstars. Some of them played well, some of them did not. But they missed the role players, like the sixth man, as in basketball. They didn't have that guy. I feel like. So a Darius Slayton, like I agree with you that Zach Bond is, to me, doesn't make a ton of sense because he's coming off an All-Pro year, so he's going to want a bunch of money. I'm pretty sure, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure he plays middle linebacker, and we have a pretty good one. So is he going to play next to Fred? I mean, maybe. And is he going to replicate his All-Pro season? Highly unlikely. And maybe it was Vic Fangio who, in that scheme, that really brought the best out of him. Maybe he
Yeah.
wouldn't quite work in our scheme. So to me, Zach Bond is unlikely, and I'm really not that interested.
Are there
I
any?
did look up quickly that the
It,
highest paid center in the NFL, Creed Humphrey for the Chiefs, makes 18 million per year. So
so
I feel like it's a really valuable position, and it's not that high of a number.
Dahlman's probably going to top that though. He's probably going to want around 20. I'm
I think
guessing.
he could reset the market, but yeah, even if he did, it would be 20, low 20s. So it's not like he's a $30 million per year type player.
Maybe.
Um,
Well, the other thing that we haven't talked about since we last got together is the new salary cap number came out, and it's obviously big,
Huge, yeah.
another big jump. So, I mean, yeah, go nuts, Niners. Um,
Yeah. I
I,
think it makes it easier to bail on Debo, probably. Makes that cap hit a little more palpable.
I mean, I just don't know how realistic um, some of these moves are, because we just don't know what the number is going to be for like Darius Slayton. I think we've all said that makes sense. A signing like that makes sense. In my mind, I'm thinking, so he'll cost you a few million, but I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe Darius Slayton is going to command 8 to 10 million from teams. Maybe he gets like a 3 year, $27 million deal from somebody.
Oof.
I don't know. I'm not saying that he will, but he's still young, and there might be teams out there that can afford that. Um, the guy from the Jets that you talk about, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but
Jamie
huh?
Jamian Sherwood.
So, do you know if he's a free agent?
I'm pretty sure he's going to be a free agent.
So, like, I wonder what his number is going to be, because obviously people in the know if you know he had a good impact, then there's people in
No,
the
I
know.
know the NFL does not know.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
just Ryan. Okay. But, I would like to think because he's not a household name and everything that he could be had for even less money than Nick Bolton or Dre Greenlaw. And I'm going purely off of what you said, Ryan, and the fact that I like the idea of somebody who has been with Robert Saleh being on
Hmm.
the team. So I feel like, okay, you got fit and he's going to be motivated to play for him and everything. So it's like, yeah, I like the idea of a guy like that. So if you can go spin big on Drew Dahlman and still be able to bring in like Darius Slayton and Sherwood and maybe some other O lineman that you can, just give decent money to, but not a lot. Why not? Like that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what I expect. I think we've also talked about though. It would probably be really good for them to get a veteran in the secondary, whether that's their third corner or a veteran free safety, and that's what I'd really like to see. Is to have a veteran free safety. And I feel like when we went through the list of available guys, there were some pretty good names on that list.
Yeah, Chasen read
There
off the
was.
safety list last time. The guy at the top, Javon Holland, would probably be my like Drew Dahlman and Javon Holland. Those are at the top of my list. Is like if you're gonna take a big swing, go get one of those guys.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I like I don't know if which one I prefer. I like the depth approach, more guys but for less money, like Darius Slayton's and there's been a lot of debate about Joey Bosa. I'm all for bringing in Joey Bosa, assuming that he's just going to be a rotational guy, not he's not Nick Bosa, he's Joey Bosa. So 500 to 600 snaps next season, 14, 15 games out of him. I'd be happy with that if they paid him like $10 million.
See, for me, if you're talking about big swing and let's just say it's between Holland and Dahlman, I'm Dahlman all the way. I I
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could probably go get a bargain safety that's going to give you, you know, 85% of Holland's production, whereas you're probably not going to get that with a bargain center.
I'm gonna look up the highest paid safety in the NFL.
But yeah,
I bet you it's Jesse Bates if I was to guess,
they
or Buda
just
Baker.
they just need to sign Drew Dahlman, Joey Bosa, Darius Slayton, and
And
Yeah, it's
trade for Miles
easy.
Garrett.
Sherwood, and then trade for Miles Garrett.
He,
Antoine Winfield Jr. to the Bucks.
21 million.
21,
Wow,
just over 21 million.
wow.
Yeah.
The highest paid safety makes more than the highest paid center. I feel like that's kind of crazy, but yeah.
I would agree. I think if you're going to get one, Dahlman would be the pick. Even though I like Javon Holland, but Jason read off that list last time, and there was good players on there.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
remember those guys like 6, 7, 8 down the list that I was like, all right, I would not be mad at that.
Buda Baker makes 14 million per year. I would love to pay Buda Baker 14 million to be a 49er.
What a steal!
I know. It's crazy.